Nobody saw this coming. Not the fans. Not the cast. Not even the people standing just feet away when everything started to unravel. Because what just happened involving Spice, Kirk, and Rasheeda isn't just drama anymore. It's something far more serious, far more unsettling, and according to insiders, far more dangerous than anyone is willing to admit publicly. It started like any other moment. Lights. Cameras. Conversations flowed like nothing was wrong. But then something shifted. Subtle at first. A look. A pause. A sentence that didn't sit right. And within seconds, everything spiraled. Because Spice, who's seen it all, who's been through every level of chaos this circle can throw, was left completely stunned. Not shocked by the cameras. Not reacting for attention. Genuinely shaken. The kind of reaction that tells you something real just happened. And the reason? What Kirk and Rasheeda revealed. Not rumors. Not speculation. Something they claimed was the truth. A truth so heavy, so disturbing, that it instantly changed the energy in the room, and triggered a chain reaction nobody could stop. Voices raised. People stepping in. Phones coming out. Because whatever was said, it wasn't supposed to be said publicly. But here's where it gets even more intense. Because according to sources close to the situation, this didn't start at that moment. This has been building. Quietly. Dangerously. With leaked messages, private warnings, and behind-the-scenes tension that never made it to camera, until now. And if even half of what's being whispered is true, then what Spice just heard might be the beginning of something much bigger. The moment everything shifted, you could feel it in the air. What started as a normal conversation suddenly turned into something heavy, like everyone in the room realized, at the exact same time, that they had just crossed into territory that couldn't be undone. Spice was standing there, listening, but not reacting right away. And that's what made it worse. Because she wasn't interrupting. She wasn't laughing it off. She was processing. Which meant whatever Kirk and Rasheeda were saying. It wasn't small. It wasn't petty. It was serious. And then Kirk said something that instantly made people step closer, without even realizing they were doing it. I told you this was gonna come out eventually, he said, his voice low but sharp. Come out. That one phrase sent a ripple through the room. Because now it sounded like this wasn't new. Like this was something that had been hidden. Something that had been waiting to surface. And Spice caught it immediately. What is he talking about? She asked, looking directly at Rasheeda. That question. Simple. But loaded. Because it forced a response. And Rasheeda didn't dodge it. She didn't laugh. She didn't deflect. Instead, she took a breath, and you could see it in her face. This was a decision. A line she was about to cross. You've been around us long enough to know things don't just happen out of nowhere, she said slowly. The room went quiet. Too quiet. Because that didn't answer the question. It deepened it. What does that mean? Spice pressed. And that's when Rasheeda dropped it. Not everything. But enough. People been warned, she said. Multiple times. Warned. Now the tension doubled. Because warnings mean something was coming. Something serious. And if people ignored those warnings, then whatever happened next wasn't a surprise, but a consequence. Spice's expression shifted instantly. Warned about what? She asked, her voice sharper now. Because now she wasn't just confused. She was concerned. And then, Kirk stepped in again. And this time, he didn't soften it. About who they dealing with, he said. And what they connected to. Connected to what? The entire room froze. Because now this wasn't just personal drama. This sounded bigger. Darker. And way more dangerous. And Spice felt it. You could see it in the way she stepped back slightly. Like she needed space to even process what she was hearing. You'll need to stop playing, she said, shaking her head. If you got something to say, say it. And that's when everything broke open. Because Rasheeda looked around the room, at the cameras, at the people listening, and then back at Spice. And instead of backing down, she leaned in. You really don't know why things been moving the way they been moving, she asked. Spice didn't answer. Because now, it felt like a trap. Like answering wrong could pull her deeper into something she wasn't ready for. And that hesitation. It said everything. But before anyone else could speak, a phone went off. Loud. Sharp. Cutting through the tension like a warning signal. Someone looked down. And their face changed instantly. Yo, this is already online, they said. The room erupted. Because that meant one thing, this wasn't contained anymore. Whatever was being said was already leaking. And sure enough, within seconds, people started checking their phones. Clips. Snippets. Pieces of the conversation, already hitting social media. But then, something bigger dropped. A screenshot. A message thread. Allegedly between Kirk and an unknown contact. Kirk, I told you this was gonna spiral. Unknown, then why didn't you stop it? Kirk, because it's bigger than just stopping it now. The internet lost control. Because now, it wasn't just talk. There were receipts. And those receipts pointed to something that had been building behind the scenes for a long time. But it didn't stop there. Because right after that screenshot, another clip surfaced. Earlier that same day. Before the confrontation. Kirk on the phone. Pacing. Agitated. I don't care who sees it at this point, he said. They need to know what they're dealing with. What they dealing with. That phrase started trending instantly. Because it sounded like a warning. A serious one. And suddenly, everything Rasheeda said earlier started making more sense. But in the worst way possible. Because if people had been warned, and if this situation was bigger than stopping it, then what exactly was going on behind the scenes? That answer almost came. Because back in the room, Spice stepped forward again. This time, not confused, not hesitant, but demanding. Stop talking around it, she said. What is this really about? And for a moment, it looked like Rasheeda was about to say everything. Like she was about to expose the full truth. Her mouth opened and then, she stopped. Because her phone buzzed. Once. Twice. 3 times. Rapid. Urgent. She looked down. And whatever she saw, it changed everything. Her face went from intense to serious, cold, controlled. And then she said something that made the entire room go silent again. We might have just made this worse. Worse? The internet froze. Because now it wasn't just about what had already been said. It was about what was happening in real time. And then, another leak dropped. A voice note. Distorted, but clear enough. A voice nobody recognized at first. Until the second sentence. You weren't supposed to say anything yet. The clip cut. But the message. Crystal clear. This wasn't supposed to happen. Not now. Not like this. And if it wasn't supposed to happen, then what was the plan? The moment that voice note hit the internet, everything shifted from intense to completely uncontrollable. Because that wasn't just a warning. That was proof. Proof that there was a plan. A timeline. Something that was supposed to unfold a certain way, and now it had been completely disrupted. And the scariest part. Nobody knew who that voice belonged to. But the tone. Cold. Calculated. Certain. You weren't supposed to say anything yet. That single line echoed across every platform, sparking a wave of speculation that hit harder than anything before it. Because now the question wasn't just what's going on. It was, what was supposed to happen? Inside the room, you could feel the panic starting to creep in. Not loud. Not chaotic. But controlled panic. The kind where people start checking their phones more than each other. The kind where conversations get quieter instead of louder. Because suddenly, everyone realized they might be in the middle of something way bigger than they thought. Spice looked at Rasheeda again, this time not just confused, but concerned. Who was that? She asked. But Rasheeda didn't answer right away. She was staring at her phone. Scrolling. Reading. And whatever she was seeing, it wasn't good. Things are already moving, she said quietly. Moving how? That question hit instantly. Because now it sounded like something had been triggered. Something that couldn't be stopped. And then, Kirk stepped in again. But this time, his energy had changed. Less confrontational. More cautious. We need to chill, he said. This not the place for all of this. That alone raised red flags. Because just minutes earlier, he was the one pushing things forward. Now? He wanted to pull back. Why? That answer came fast. Because another leak dropped. And this one. It didn't just add fuel. It poured gasoline on everything. A longer audio clip. Clear. Unfiltered. And this time, the voice was identifiable. Kirk. I told you we should have handled it before it got to this point, he said. Another voice responded, sharp, urgent, and I told you it wasn't ready yet. Ready? That word sent shockwaves. Because it confirmed something huge, there was a plan. A controlled reveal. Something that was meant to come out, eventually. But not like this. Not publicly. Not in the middle of a heated confrontation. And now, that control was gone. Completely. Back in the room, people weren't even pretending anymore. Phones were fully out. Messages flying. Some people stepping away, whispering, clearly trying to distance themselves from whatever this was becoming. Because it didn't feel like drama anymore. It felt risky. And Spice. She was done waiting. You'll keep talking like this is some big secret, she said, her voice rising. What is it? And this time, Kirk answered. But not directly. Not fully. Just enough to make everything worse. It's not just about us, he said. And that's the problem. The problem. That line hit hard. Because now it confirmed, there were other people involved. Other names. Other connections. And if this situation exposed them too, then the fallout wouldn't just be messy. It would be massive. But before anyone could press him further, another notification hit. Simultaneously. Multiple phones. Same message. Same screenshot. Because someone had just leaked a conversation that changed everything. A group chat, 5 participants. Names mostly blurred. But 2 stood out clearly. Kirk Rasheeda. And the title of the chat. Handle this quietly. The internet exploded. Because now, there was no denying it. Something had been happening behind the scenes. Something they were actively trying to manage. Control. Contain. But the messages inside that chat, they didn't look controlled anymore. They looked panicked. We can't let this hit the blogs yet. It's already too late for that. Then we need to figure out what gets said and what doesn't. You think that's still possible? That last line. Chilling. Because it sounded like they already knew this was out of their hands. Completely. And then, as if things couldn't get more intense, Spice's phone buzzed again. She looked down. And her entire expression changed. From frustration to shock. Real shock. What? Someone asked. She didn't answer right away. Just stared at the screen. And then finally said something that made the entire room freeze. This ain't just about your silence. Because that confirmed everything Kirk had hinted at earlier. This was bigger. Way bigger. Then what is it about? Someone pressed. Spice looked up. Hesitated. Like she wasn't sure if she should even say it out loud. And then, before she could speak, another video dropped online. This one. Different. Not a conversation. Not a leak. But footage. Security camera footage. Time-stamped. From a location nobody expected. And what it showed changed everything. Because in that clip, you could see Kirk Rasheeda and someone else meeting. Late. Private. And the way they were talking. It wasn't casual. It was urgent. Seriously. And whatever they were discussing, it looked like the moment this entire situation started. The clip cut right as one of them said something. Something the audio barely caught. We don't have much time before this gets out. The second that security footage hit the internet, everything stopped feeling like speculation. Because this wasn't a rumor. This wasn't a voice note. This was visual proof that something had been happening behind the scenes. Something urgent enough to bring Kirk and Rasheeda together in private. Away from cameras, away from the noise. And now, everyone had seen it. The clip replayed everywhere. Slowed down. Zoomed in. Analyzed frame by frame like it held the key to everything. Because people noticed details. The way Kirk kept checking his phone. The way Rasheeda looked around, like she didn't want to be seen. And the third person. Still unidentified. Face partially hidden. But present. Involved. Important. And that one sentence caught at the end of the clip. We don't have much time before this gets out. That line became the center of everything. Because it confirmed one thing beyond any doubt. There was something coming. Something they knew about. Something they were trying to manage before it went public. But they failed. And now. It was everywhere. Back at the scene, the energy had completely shifted. Nobody was arguing anymore. Nobody was shouting. Because this wasn't about confrontation now. This was about realization. Spice stood there, staring at her phone, watching the clip loop over and over again. You knew, she said quietly, looking up at Rasheeda. Not a question. A statement. Rasheeda didn't answer immediately. And that silence. It spoke louder than anything she could have said. Because in that moment, everyone understood. This wasn't random. This wasn't sudden. This had been planned. Or at least, anticipated. You knew this was coming, Spice repeated. And this time, Rasheeda nodded. Slightly. But enough. The room reacted instantly. Because that confirmation changed everything. Then why didn't you say anything? Someone asked. Rasheeda took a breath. Long, heavy. Like she was deciding how much to reveal. I was trying to protect people, she said. Protect WHO. That question hit immediately. Because now the narrative shifted again. This wasn't just about exposure. It was about protection. About keeping something hidden, for a reason. But before anyone could press her further, Kirk stepped in. And this time, there was no hesitation. No more half-talking, he said. It's already out there. The internet held its breath. Because this felt like the moment. The full reveal. The truth. And then, he said it. Not everything. But enough to send shockwaves through everyone watching. This situation, he said. It don't just affect us. It affects people who didn't sign up for any of this. People who didn't sign up. That line hit harder than anything else. Because it meant innocent parties. Uninvolved names. People who could be dragged into something they never chose to be part of. And suddenly, the stakes felt higher. Way higher. Because this wasn't just drama anymore. This was fallout. Real consequences. And Spice. She wasn't holding back anymore. Then why bring it up at all? She demanded. Why say anything if you knew it could go this far? And that question. It hung in the air. Because it forced accountability. Forced a reason. And Rasheeda answered. Quiet. But firm. Because it was already leaking, she said. And I wasn't about to let the story get twisted. Twisted how? That question hit instantly. Because now it sounded like there were versions of this story. Different angles. Different truths. And Rasheeda wanted control of which one came out first. But that control. It was gone. Completely. Because at that exact moment, another notification hit. And this one changed everything again. A longer recording. The one insiders had been hinting at. The one nobody thought would actually surface. Until now. It was uploaded. No warning. No explanation. Just a file. And within seconds, it spread everywhere. The audio started playing. Voices overlapping. Tension thick. Kirk. Rasheeda. And that third voice from the footage. You said this wouldn't get tied back to us, the third voice said. Rasheeda responded immediately. I said we'd handle it before it did. Handle what? The recording continued. Kirk's voice this time. We ran out of time. That's the problem. Ran out of time. Those words echoed like a final confirmation. Because now it was clear, there was a situation. Something that had a timeline. Something that needed to be managed before it became public. And they didn't manage it in time. The third voice spoke again. If this fully comes out, it's not just your names on the line. The internet froze. Because that confirmed it, multiple people. Multiple lives. All connected to whatever this was. And then, the final line of the recording. The one that sent everything into complete chaos. We should have never been involved in this in the first place. Silence. Heavy. Unavoidable. Because that line. It changed everything. It turned the entire situation from messy to dangerous. Because now the question isn't just what happened. It's, why were they involved at all? And what exactly did they get pulled into? Because until that part comes out, this story isn't finished. Not even close. If you think this is the end, you're already behind. Because what's coming next could expose names nobody expected. Hit like right now, drop your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe, because when the full truth drops, everything changes. If you've made it this far, then you already know, this isn't just another reality TV moment. This is something deeper, something still unfolding, and every second you're not paying attention, you're missing pieces of a story that's getting more intense by the minute. So don't scroll. Don't click away. Because the next leak, the next recording, the next name that gets exposed, it could drop at any time. And when it does, you either saw it here first, or you're scrambling trying to catch up with everyone else. Hit that like button right now, because the more this video spreads, the harder it becomes for the truth to stay buried. And trust me, there are people who would rather this entire situation disappear before everything fully comes to light. Go straight to the comments and tell me what you think is really going on. What do you think they were trying to handle? Who else is involved? And what do you think is still being hidden from the public? Break it all down, share your theories, and don't hold back, because this comment section is turning into a full investigation. And if you're not subscribed yet, this is your warning. Because the next update won't come with a heads up. It'll just drop. And if you're not here when it happens, you're already behind. Turn on notifications so you never miss a single update. Stay locked in. Because this story, it's far from over.